Hi my frogs and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be reading The Doctor Who Dances with the Dawn by Bud on AO3, specifically Chapter 3. Now, the rating is teen and up audience with the archive warning be graphic descriptions of violence. So if you feel uncomfortable with that, please go choose another video. I really would not want you guys to feel uncomfortable by one of my videos, okay? I have a series that doesn't have graphic descriptions of violence, and I have a couple of different one-shots. And I am going to be getting some other stuff uploaded pretty soon. Hopefully yeah. Also, there's just like other creators with the less descriptive stuff, so just please, if you feel uncomfortable with violence, please go choose another video for your own safety. Anyways, let's get into this. This work has 183,387 words, 27 chapters, and it is still in progress. It was last updated. Yeah, I don't know if this work will ever be completed, considering its last update was in 2025. Was in last October. But let's hope. But either way, we've got a while before that, so let's just get into it. Doctor Who Dances with the Dawn by Bun, Chapter 3. It's the end of Chapter 4 notes. Also, yes, I'm still dealing with congestion at the time of recording. There was danger ahead. Yoriichi's feet slowed to a stop, heart pounding. He hadn't sensed a demonic presence like this before. The weight of it was stifling. He broke into a run. The sun had already risen, and there was supposed to be a dojo located in this direction. He had to be careful. The demon had likely taken shelter inside. As the dojo came into view, he skidded to a stop. Yes, it was as he'd feared. The likelihood that the demon, this strong, would leave any of the humans in there alive had been minuscule. He'd surveyed the blood-soaked landscape with a heavy heart. Outside the building was littered with corpses, and from what he could see the interior, it was a similar state, but it was too late. With slow steps, he approached one of the bodies, crouched to examine it. There was no recognizable features remaining. The face had been pulverized beyond recognition. "Well, this is a surprise." Yoriichi kept his startled reaction and walked behind a stony mask and turned towards the voice. It would do him any good to show a reaction and give this monster the upper hand. Rather than sheltering in the corpse-filled dojo like he'd assumed, the demon had lurked in the shade of the trees of the surrounding forest. He was unconventional looking, even for a demon. Yoriichi didn't think he'd ever seen anyone with pink hair before, and like the demon he had encountered weeks prior, there seemed to be something written in his eyes. Upper Mood 3? The demon laughed. "Cold one, aren't you? Not even going to introduce yourself. I'll go first. My name is Akaza." Yoriichi gave him a flat look. "Seriously, what a grouchy guy. It's not my fault you didn't get here sooner. At least you could have offered yourself as a trade." He spread his hands out in a gesture of mocking pacifism. "I would have accepted too. Those weaklings weren't worth my time in the end." In a steady voice, Yoriichi finally replied, "All life holds value. Why would mine be worth more than theirs?" Akaza snorted disbelievingly. "Weren't you listening to me? I said they were weak. That means they're worthless. I only have an interest in the strong." His grin turned predatory as he cocked his head, eyeing Yoriichi. "You don't look too tough yourself, but hey, that's all right." He was clear that one of the Hanafuda earrings is the one we're after. Yoriichi felt his heartbeat stutter. Those earrings were duplicates? Did that mean? He had to stay calm. He couldn't react. His family's life might be at stake here. Why? He pressed desperately grateful that his voice sounded flat despite the roaring thunder of his heart. "Oh, please, like I asked. He was angry enough as it was. I wasn't going to bother him by demanding specifics. But whatever it was, it sure seems personal. I don't think I've ever heard him say that we're supposed to capture a human instead of just killing him." His eyes gleamed. You should be honored. You're apparently very special to my master. Yoriichi refused to give the demon his name once more, and turned heel. Tell him I'll find my way to him in my own time. I'm busy. He responded in as cold of a voice as he could humanly muster. Be gone from my sight. Akaza tisked. You're one rude brat. You're lucky it's daytime or I'd beat you within an inch of your life for turning and your back on me. Well, that's fine. You won't be able to get at far before nightfall. His voice dripped with wickedness. I'll catch up more by then. He felt the demon's presence recede. Even so, it lingered on the edge of his consciousness. He was biding his time. Yoriichi gritted his teeth. He didn't have time to bury the bodies, whispered apologies on his lips, and he dragged the corpses indoors, and glanced around hurriedly. There was a bottle of alcohol on the ground that had been shattered, its contents leaking profusely onto the floor. I'm sorry, he repeated, digging a lighter from his bag. At least this way he won't be able to further desecrate your bodies. Using the billowing smoke as a cover, Yoriichi fled, retracting his steps to the road, then moved to cut across a field. Akaza must have realized what he had done, because he had sensed the demon's presence shifting. The demon was tracking him like a hunter stalking prey. He redoubled his pace. Cutting through a river, he sprinted along the stone banks so he could avoid leaving any footsteps behind. Then, making a risky gamble, he dove into the shallow ravine, overgrown with weeds, pressing into his hands, over his mouth, and forcing himself to control his breathing. He extended his extrasensory perception, reaching out until he sensed Akaza. The demon was moving towards him, but there. He had continued through the forest along the perimeter of the field. The demon must have assumed that Yoriichi would take the sunniest route possible and not hide in a shadowy ditch. Yoriichi waited a few more beats before dashing back in the opposite direction. Yoriichi was exhausted. Akaza, as it turned out, was quite the stubborn character. He had dodged his steps for days, even wondering when Yoriichi managed to lose him several times. He still kept popping back up. Nights in particular were especially horrendous, with his movement unhampered by the sun. Akaza nearly succeeded at predicting and cutting off his escape route twice, but eventually Yoriichi was able to lose him in a murky wetland. By that point, Yoriichi was paranoid, and he took a long, zigzagging path through some rocky crags before determining that he had finally truly lost the demon. At last, he could make his way to his destination without fear of leading the demon there. So, step by step, painful source step, he made his way. He got lucky. A man with a horse and cart rode by and was sympathetic to the young teenager with an oversized pack and a haggard appearance. He was offered a ride, which he wearily but ungratefully accepted. Yoriichi had barely managed to hoist himself into the cart before falling asleep, head dropping against his knees. His dreams were senseless and disconnecting, painting himself as some small wild creature before being pursued by nameless, faceless hunters. He ran and ran until he found himself on a familiar mountain. The feeling of temporary safety washed over him as he inched towards a figure dressed in green and black checkered clothing that seemed to radiate comfort. The figure, turns out, it was Tanjiro, not too old, long hair, no burn scar. It was the same kind eyes and sweet smile, the same feeling of home. He awoke with a melancholy, bittersweet feeling seeping into his bones. The peach orchard looked the same as he had remembered. Since it was so late in the year, the fruit had long since been harvested, and the leaves were dormant. But Yoriichi still took comfort in watching the branches sway. With a steady sigh, he made his way towards Jigoro's home. To his surprise, it was not Jigoro who came to the door. In fact, the door slid open before he even had the chance to call and announce his presence. Before him stood a boy with dark, choppy hair and watering amber eyes. As they made contact with Yoriichi's gaze, tears began to pool even faster. Before he could ask if the boy was all right, he had been tackled into a messy embrace. "Please save me!" A stranger wailed, his reedy voice muffled by Yoriichi's clothing. "Save me! He's crazy! I'm gonna die! I tell you, you're my only hope!" Yoriichi blinked several times, brows furrowed in bewilderment. Gingerly, he cupped the boy's chin and lifted his head up to face him. He was awfully dirty from his frenzied journey, but with the cleanest corner of his hair, he began to dab the boy's tears. "Are you injured?" He managed to cut in as the boy took a breath and from bawling to his raggedy inhale. To Yoriichi's chagrin, he didn't have the calming effect he'd hoped for. "Yes, everything hurts. And I have bruises and my lungs hurt. I gotta die." The sobbing was making his words nearly incomprehensible. Fully at a loss, Yoriichi rubbed his head like he'd seen Tanjiro do while Naruto was having a crying fit. "Zenitsu!" Yoriichi heard Jigero's voice, below, not from inside the home, but from the orchard. "Where are you?" "Eek! Hide me! Hide me! Save me!" The boy shrieked close enough to Yoriichi's ear to make it ring. The boy was baffled. He definitely heard you now with all that screaming. Sure enough, looking over his shoulder, Yoriichi could see Jigoro charging towards the home. He was alarmingly quick for a man and with a prosthetic leg. Yoriichi turned quick and bowed respectfully as he approached, which was somewhat difficult considering there was now a crying teenager latched onto his back. "Zenitsu, what are you doing? Get off the young man!" Jigoro's eyes widened with recognition, a huge grin that split his face. "Yoriichi, I hardly recognize you. You've gotten even taller." His smile faded slightly as Yoriichi's road-battered appearance settled in. "What on earth have you gotten yourself into, lad?" Yoriichi dipped his head into an apologetic expression. "I'm not certain, but I think it's bad. Do you have time to talk?" It had been a pretty lousy morning for Zenitsu. Kaigaku had been mean to him, as always, the jerk. And Gramps' training had felt even more brutal than usual. Well, despite desperate for a momentary reprieve, he hid into the house during a water break. He wasn't trying to get out of training. He just needed to be alone and cry for a bit. As he sniffled miserably, laying into a heap on the floor, he was pulled from his sulking by a quiet, gentle sound. Someone was approaching Gramps' house, and whoever it was sounded like a soft whisper of a breeze through grass. It was like a balm to his sensitive ears, a refreshing change from Kaigaku's grating and grinding anger and Gramps' sometimes overwhelming crackling zeal. He'd stumbled his feet and thrown open the door before his mind even fully caught up to his actions. In a fully humiliating first impression, he burst into tears upon meeting the eyes of the young man on the other side, unable to resist venting his woes to the first person who seemed remotely willing to listen. That was usually the point where most people would roll their eyes at him or push him away in disgust or make fun of him. Yoriichi, he learned it, but his name was, did not. Gramps told him to make some tea and food for their guest, and so he got on a front row seat as Yoriichi began to explain the frankly horrifying things that had happened to him. Zenitsu had to bite his lip to stop himself from screaming. Scary, too scary. He couldn't imagine how petrified he'd be. He'd to be only unarmed, not only to be unarmed, but to have demons say that they want to capture him. Why? What did demons want with some random doctor? Gramps sighed heavily when Yoriichi finished talking. "Well, you're right. This isn't good. Those demons you encountered were members of the 12 demon moons. They're the highest-ranking demon soldiers that serve under the ruler of all demons, Muzan Kabutsuji." At the name, Yoriichi's right hand visibly twitched. A momentary shadow seemed to pass over his features, but it was gone so quickly that Yoriichi himself seemed unaware of it. Gramps raised an eyebrow. "Have you heard of him before?" Yoriichi was silent for a moment. "It sounds familiar." Rubbing his chin, Gramps shrugged. "Perhaps Yukimura mentioned something. Either way, it's uncommon for even the Hashira to encounter one of the lower moons. Hardly anyone has had the misfortune of running into an upper moon, and let alone live to tell the tale. And I have never, in all my years, ever heard of demons trying to capture and bring back a human alive." Yoriichi's hand reached up to the Hanafuda earrings. "Is it truly me that they're after, or is it my family?" "The Kamados, right? The ones who gave you those." Gramps looked deep in thought. I'm afraid I can't answer that one. The leader of the Demon Slayers will likely be able to give you a better guess than I can, but there's definitely a chance that their lives are in danger. Even if it's just you they're after, and they've decided they want you to capture you for some godforsaken reason, it's entirely possible that Akamados could be targeted for leverage, or simply out of sheer spite. Yoriichi straightened, even though his expression remains as he still as carved stone. Zenitsu could hear his heart begin to race. I need to warn them. Jigoro placed a placating hand. I'll take care of that. They'll need to be moved, and that much is certain. I'm familiar with the area you described. The former Wada or Hashira lives near there. I'll get in contact with him and see that he ensures their safety. Yoriichi let out a shaky exhale and nodded. You have my thanks, Jigoro. But what are you going to do now? Zenitsu interrupted. Demons are after you. Really, really strong ones. You can't just go wandering around again. They'll hurt you for sure. Or worse! Yoriichi looked at him with an expression of shock before his cheeks reddened ever so slightly. I'll run? He suggested sheepishly. Gramps rapped him on the head with his knuckles. Idiot! You're staying here until Master Ubuyashiki has a chance to respond to the letter I'll send him. He jabbed a finger at Yoriichi's chest. In the meantime, I have a suggestion. Yoriichi cocked his head to the side, and Gramps leaned closer. Train, he said emphatically. I'm aware of your hesitancy around the blade, and I will respect that, but that's no excuse to allow yourself to be a sitting duck. If the demons are indeed after you, no matter where you go, there will always be a liability. What will you do when your presence leads to someone getting killed? Yoriichi blanched at that, and Zenitsu squeaked in protest. Gramps, that's so harsh. Perhaps this truth may be Perhaps, but learning this truth is the hard way would be much harsher. You must learn to defend yourself, Yoriichi. Running can only keep you and those you care about safe for so long. There was a long silence, and the young doctor's head dropped. I understand. Gramps clasped his shoulders momentarily, bracing. I'm not demanding that you abandon your path as a healer to become a slayer. I just want you to live. You understand that, yes? At that, Yoriichi met his eyes. I do. Thank you for that. Gramps went back outside after that, probably to figure out where Kaigaku had gone. Left alone with Yoriichi, who hadn't moved from his spot by the table, Zenitsu inched closer. Are you going to be okay? He asked nervously. Sorry, it's just that you sound kind of sad right now. He did his best to force his voice to be encouraging. Gramps can be a bit of a bully, but he's a really good teacher, surprisingly patient. He won't give up on you, even if you cry, so don't be sad, please. Yoriichi smiled genuinely at him. Zenitsu felt his face instantly flush from the kind of positive attention. Thank you. You're kind. He looked away and stared into nothing, thankfully missing the embarrassing face Zenitsu made at the praise. I have this awful feeling that fate is attempting to force me down a path I won't be able to come back from. His voice was soft and distant. Sounded strange, coming from someone so young. It frightens me. I wonder if, by the end of my life, I'll even recognize myself. That sounds kind of scary and existential. Are you okay? Yoriichi shook himself from his daze. I will be. I must. Jigoro's other student, Kaigaku, was not as supportive as Zenitsu had been. When he told Jigoro had taken on yet another pupil, he gave Yoriichi a deeply sour expression, as though he were something rotten on the side of the road. Yoriichi, unimpressed with our teenager, simply raised an eyebrow. Kaigaku's face further darkened. Master, he said in a tightly controlled voice, I just don't understand why you're the one who has to train him. If he isn't even going to be a demon slayer, then what's the point of someone as important as you wasting your time? Wasting? Jigoro cut off Kaigaku with an incredulous tone. I'm doing no such thing. I'm a man of my word, Kaigaku, and Yukimura was a dear friend of mine. I swore to him I'd look after Yoriichi in times of need, and that's precisely what I plan to do. He thumped his cane sharply into Kaigaku's side. My decision is final. So long as the young master Yashiki doesn't have a better idea, I will discuss it no more. Yes, of course, I understand. The voice came through gritted teeth, but the young man spun and stalked out of the room. Zenitsu darted hastily out of his way. Jigoro watched him leave with a mournful look. Forgive my impertinent student, Yoriichi. He has had the hard life. I think it's easy for him to forget that not everyone is against him. No offense taken, Yoriichi said quietly. His attention was more focused on Zenitsu. Had it been his imagination, or had the boy flinched when the fellow student approached? Upon noticing the eyes on him, Zenitsu shrunk into himself, looking like he wanted nothing more than to disappear. Whatever was going on there couldn't be healthy. Yoriichi filed the observation away for later. The day before he was able to train with the former Thunder Pillar, Yoriichi had privately slipped away from the orchard. Zenitsu's eyes followed him curiously, but he must have sensed that Yoriichi needed to be alone for the moment. Walking the path to his home felt so strange. How could he feel so nostalgic for a home he'd barely even known? He slid the door open and stared into the dark interior for a moment. Everything was coated in dust, and the air had a musty, stale scent to it. It seemed that no one had entered the building since his departure. He exited, closing the door gently behind him. His real focus was not in the house. Instead, he followed a small curved path that led uphill to the building, looping into the quiet grove of bamboo. This was where Yukimura had been buried. He was surprised to see such a simple, unpainted vase next to his grave that was brimming with flowers, despite how being somewhat wilted had been in a grand offering. Surely it couldn't have been from Jigoro. The man didn't seem like a flower-picking type, and yet he couldn't think of anyone else who'd care enough to go through the trouble. A mystery for another time, he supposed. He sat down before the grave. In a voice that was barely a whisper, he spoke in the air. I hope you're enjoying a nice rest, my teacher. Naturally, there was no sound in response, other than the wind. Even so, Yoriichi felt at peace for the first time in months. He didn't move, breathing in the crisp air deeply. He wasn't sure how long he remained there, motionless and thoughtless. It was long enough that the sun had shifted positions, and shadows stretched, edging longer across the ground. When he returned, he asked Jigoro about the flowers, but the old man had just shrugged. No clue, he said. To be honest, I'm surprised anyone would visit his grave other than the two of us. Training was hellish. Zenitsu, despite his dramatic nature, had not been exaggerating when he called it as such. Yoriichi's training was different than it was for Jigoro's other two pupils. There were two facets to this. First, a much greater emphasis placed on reflex training and stamina, and at the end of the day, no matter what combat training he would learn, fighting was not Yoriichi's primary role, so he had to improve his evasive capabilities. The ideal scenario involved the demons being unable to catch him at all, let alone pick a fight with him. The second half was far more difficult. Jigoro had retrieved a veritable cartload of weaponry. One by one, he experimented to see what suited him best. That in itself wasn't the hard part. The hard part that everything that he picked up felt wrong. Daggers felt too short, spears were unwieldy, shurikens were awkward. Worst of all was the gun. Yoriichi didn't think he'd ever held something so alien. He didn't feel like the way the crack of gunfire made Zenitsu's ears startle like a timid rabbit and clutched at his ears. Eventually, he settled for the two options that felt the least awful, hoping that he'd acclimate to them with time. For his primary defense, he selected a bow. He reasoned he would keep him safe at a safe distance and his opponents. He also had a little experience with archery for hunting purposes, so the weapon felt more comfortable than the others thanks to the familiarity. Jigoro had also insisted on a dagger for emergencies, as a bow wouldn't do good if the demons managed to get too close. And despite Yoriichi's difficulty remembering the blade's short reach, he was surprisingly good with the little weapon. The weapons he was given for training would be temporary, Jigoro explained. I'm working on acquiring something more substantial now that you've made your choices, he told Yoriichi over dinner one night. Ordinary steel won't do good against demons after all. One of the pillars, the insect hosher, had been quite helpful. Be certain to thank her if you ever have the chance to meet her in person. Of course, I'm grateful for the support. Kagaaku snorted quietly into his food, but kept his snide remarks to himself. He learned that such comments will not be received well by Jigoro. The irritable teenager was much more willing to voice his opinions when the old man wasn't around. Don't get why the court would fuss so much over one lousy civilian. All this wasted time and resources. It's embarrassing, frankly. These people who are leading your organization. He vented into the open air of the peach orchard during a break. To Yoriichi's surprise, before he had the chance to rebuttal, Zenitsu stood to his defense. Why wouldn't they care? He protested. Small fish clutch. That's the point of being a demon slayer, right? To help ordinary people? So they don't want Yoriichi to get taken away by demons. The older pupil rolled his eyes. You're so naive. Of course that's not the only point of being a member of the corps. Don't act like you can't see how wealthy the master is. This isn't charity work we're getting into. He cast another critical eye over Yoriichi. What the hell do demons even want with you? You aren't a Morechi, and even if you were, they don't have enough self-control to keep a pet at blood bank. So why? His voice dropped a bit quieter, seeming genuinely baffled. Maybe one of them is sick. Yoriichi deadpanned. Kagaku's face twisted into a scowl. He was extra unpleasant towards his fellow students for the next few days after. One day, when Yoriichi planned to visit Yukimura's grave again, Zenitsu quietly asked if he could tag along. Yoriichi was glad for the company and agreed to do it. Would I have liked him, your old teacher? Zenitsu asked as they walked away, clearly enjoying the break from the grueling training. Yoriichi could hardly blame him. Jigoro had been even more fired up than usual today. His legs were still sore. You always sound really soft and happy when you talk about him. Yoriichi hummed. He probably would have picked on you a lot. Eh? But he had a good way of showing that he cared. Even if friendly, words didn't come easily to him. Yoriichi chuckled under his breath. I think you would have grown on each other. So a bully like Gramps, then. Zenitsu sulked, but he didn't seem too put out. No wonder they were friends. Imagine being one of the people who had to work with them in the corpse days. The horror! Those poor souls! Zenitsu shrieked, and then paused. He had made it to the grave, but it seems like something caught his attention. Hey, are those flowers? Yoriichi blinked and looked up. The vase had been refilled with fresh blossoms. His eyes lit up. Someone had visited the last time I came. Him as well. I'm glad he isn't lonely. Zenitsu peered at the blossoms, curiously running a thumb over a delicate petal. They're so pretty. What a nice gift. Must have been in a hard art to find something blooming at this time of year. I wish someone would give me flowers. I had someone to give me flowers. Was Dr. Yukimura married? A startled laugh escaped Yoriichi. Heavens, no! Even so, perhaps the old grouch hadn't been as disliked as he claimed. Good work today, lad, Jigoro boomed as Yoriichi grasped and heaved for breath while laying in a heap on the ground. You ready to start something harder tomorrow? Yoriichi glared at him, balefully enough making him cackle. Demon! Yoriichi whispered. He rolled up to evade the strike of the ex-slayer's cane. Yes, I'm ready. Good. Now, get up. I have something for you. Pressing his lips to stop a groan of pain from escaping, Yoriichi swung to his feet. From the sleeve of his haori, Jigoro produced an envelope. You have a letter. He handed it over. From Tanjiro Kamado. Yoriichi's eyes were alight as he moved to sit on a tree. He stopped to read the letter. Jigoro left to wrap up the others' training for the day as well. Yoriichi! Hey, it's me, your brother. Are you taking care of yourself, getting plenty of sleep, drinking lots of water? Are you wearing shoes? It's getting cold out. Winter's almost here. Don't forget. A lot has happened in a really short period of time. It's kind of overwhelming and confusing, and Oroko, the man we're staying with, explained it all to us. I don't know what's scarier, the thought that you have made an enemy of the Smuzon Kabutsuchi without even knowing it, or that my family did at some point, and that by giving you our name and earrings, we put a target on your back. I'm so sorry. I hope you can forgive us. Hey, if that's the latter, but either way, it's still scary, and I hate the idea that you're being threatened. I hate that how you have to learn to fight now. You shouldn't have to. It's not fair at all. So don't get mad. I've already made up my mind. I'm going to become a demon slayer. I'm sorry I didn't talk to you about it beforehand. I knew you tried to convince me not to, but my decision is final. You saved Father's life, and now it's my turn to help you. I'm going to become a demon slayer, and then I'm going to protect you no matter what. So wait for me, okay? I'll become the strongest there is, and you won't have to fight at all. Less dramatic, but still super exciting news. Nezuko got an internship. She's going to be learning from doctors inside the Demon Slayer Corps. We're so excited for her. It's going to be a little sad, though because it means we'll have to be apart for a while. But I support her. She's worked super hard for this. Even if I'm a little sad, I'll cheer her on. Urokodaki said that there's no way they'll be allowed to come up to see us for New Year's, but that was really sad to hear. But Father said we're going to be connected now, all through Kinokami. So even if we are together in person, our prayers will still reach each other. I'll wrap this up now. Hanako and Shigeru will want to hear a bedtime story, but I'll make sure to write to you more. Urokodaki says he doesn't mind me using his curl until I get my own. So I expect to hear a lot from me. Everyone says hi, and they all love you. Take care. Tanjiro. Tanjiro. I'm glad to hear that you're all right. Please don't apologize too much over how this all came to pass. Even if your family was the reason I was marked, I don't regret a thing. I would still carry these earrings and the name Kamado with pride. It's true, I would have tried to stop you from becoming a slayer. I hate the idea of you having to fight demons. I can hardly abide the idea of you getting injured in the process. Truthfully, the only reason I'm not attempting to get you to rethink your decision is because I know it'd be wasted effort. There's no person on this earth more stubborn than my brother. I'll wait for you. I sent a letter to Nezuko to congratulate her. She's going so far. I can tell Jigoro tells me that the doctor she'll be working with is extraordinary. She'll be in good hands. Jigoro also tells me that he'll see what he can do about providing me with some sort of bird. Even if I'm not a slayer, my circumstances are unusual, and it seems that Master Ubiyashiki is willing to make an exception for me. Father is right. I'll be with you in spirit on New Year's, knowing that you all are safe is enough for me. I love you all too. Take care. I'll be sure to stay in contact. And Tanjiro, the shoe thing was one time. Let it go. I beg you. Yoriichi. Winter came and went, and with it New Year's passed as well. Yoriichi told no one that night but his own. He'd stuck out to a private grove and performed the Hinokami Kagura. In a way, it was a terrible idea, because it left him exhausted before training the next day had even begun. He didn't regret it, though. He continued to visit Yugimura's grave. There was a point where it seemed that the mysterious flower gifter had stopped coming, but as soon as the spring returned, the offerings returned even more beautiful than before. As training wore on, Yoriichi found himself increasingly fretting over for Zenitsu. The poor boy seemed to be feeling more down on himself by the day. Kaigaku's skills were improving by leaps and bounds, but Zenitsu seems to have hit a wall. On more than one occasion, Yoriichi watched him slip out on his own in the dead of night to get even more training, only to return in the morning with a defeated expression. The fifth time he observed this happen, Yoriichi pulled the younger teen aside with a concerned frown tugging at his lips. Zenitsu's head was already tucked with shame, as though he anticipated being berated. "I'm worried for you." He kept his voice gentle, so there would be no assumptions he was angry or frustrated. "Sleep is vital for your health, and it's just as much fuel for your body as food. You can't keep harming yourself like this." Zenitsu's eyes brimmed with tears. "I have to, though. I'm not getting any better, or so what else can I do?" He scrubbed his eyes with his sleeve. If I put in lots of effort, I'll get better. That's how it works, right?" Yoriichi bit his lip. "It is, but not at the cost of your health." Zenitsu averted his gaze and mumbled in an affirmation. Next time Yoriichi saw him sneaking out, he pretended not to see, even as the heaviness weighed down on his heart. He planned to write Tanjiro the following evening and ask for advice. Those plans were derailed by lightning. Okay, guys, so that was Agutsuba Bloodline. Not Agutsuba Bloodlines, god damn it. And I'm way too used to recording that. So that was the Doctor... Okay, guys, so that was the Doctor Who Dances with the Dog on Chapter 3. I really hope you guys enjoy... Oh, shit, did I forget? Did I forget to hit the notes? Yeah, I did. Notes. Taisho Era Secret Number 2. Mysterious flower gifter's favorite color appears to be indigo, as that is the primary color of nearly every flower arrangement they leave. Unbeknownst to Yoriichi, they were actually still visiting during the winter. They were just unable to find anything capable of blooming during those cold months. Thank you for the kind comments. I've been a very chatty person, so I don't usually respond, but I always read them and appreciate them. Take care. Now it has been the Doctor Who Dances with the Dawn Chapter 3. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave comments and kudos on the original fic, link in description. Anyways, I'll be seeing you guys next time. Bye!